Folks, welcome into sportsbookreview.com. It's time to talk some NFL football. Opening lines, week 10 of the NFL season. An exciting action-packed weekend, but now we flip the page and take a look at week 10. Hitting this card today, of course, I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. And every Tuesday, or just about every Tuesday, Larry comes on from WagerWeb to talk a little bit of NFL football. Before we do that, thank you guys for coming in here and supporting the show. We really appreciate it. 73,400 people have hit the subscribe button to us right here at sportsbookreview.com. And also my partner here, Kyle Purviance, rocking and rolling and ready to go, pulling double duty on a Tuesday. I'm excited to talk NFL football, Kyle. It's here, week 10. Let's get it going.
Week 10, that's crazy, right? We're in double digits in the weeks.
Yeah, slow it down.
What the hell is going on? I mean, I am excited for Thanksgiving. It's my favorite day of the year. So I love the holiday season, but good Lord, the time is going by. But what a week. I mean, a ton of close games, a ton of nail biters. And then, of course, as we all predicted, the biggest blowout on the slate was the Saints and Buccaneers, the one we penciled in as the biggest mismatch of the week, right? Crazy week, a lot of fun. Even last night's game brought the action a little bit. It was fun. So I'm excited for week 10. Weather doesn't seem like it's going to be a concern again, which is kind of nice. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, the fans love it. We love it every time Larry is here. And I'm excited to talk a little Dolphins with Larry as well. So we're glad to have him in here as well.
Glad to be here. We're going to have. No, it's going to be great, Larry. We're going to have some fun with you. And we do appreciate you coming on each and every Tuesday here, at least every other Tuesday with us, talking a little fun. And it's a great week to have Larry on, too, because we're going to get to some fun out of those Miami Dolphins in just a bit here. But looking overall at the – how do you know 2020 is a messed-up season? Last night we had 57 points in a Jets football game that they participated in and almost pulled off the victory. So wild stuff here. But looking last week, Kyle brings it right up here. Great segue getting into this with you, Larry. When we take a look at the NFL action on Sunday, we were sitting here in November, and we had great weather, which equals great scoring from a fantasy perspective, a gambling perspective, because we like to bet overs. It was a fun week to look ahead. One of those nice Indian summers here up in the Northeast, Larry. A lot of fun we had on Sunday with some high scoring.
Yeah, I see you guys unseasonably warm in the Northeast. And it's like you said, I mean, I think there was only 4 games that went under this past week. And, when you come to look at it, if you look at the Kansas City game, if it's regular November weather, that might have been a different game. Same thing with Buffalo. If it was regular November weather in Buffalo, might have been a different thing. Hopefully we can get 2 or 3 weeks out of this nice weather and, give us some really good football that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I got to tell you, I watch the Red Zone. That's how I watch football on Sundays, and I go read back and watch. And when he says it's the witching hour, he is not joking. This week was absolutely insane in the fourth quarter, especially those early games, that Raiders-Chargers games. What's going through your head, Larry, in those fourth quarters? Is it heart attack central for the books in those fourth quarters?
It's nail-biting because before the games start, you more or less know what you need. And that Chargers game, crazy ending fourth quarter. They can't hold a lead in the fourth quarter, and a lot of players know that. Look at the Miami game, down to the fourth quarter, down to a missed field goal. It was a nail-biter this weekend. It really was, more than any other weekend previous. I mean, it went down to the wire in a lot of these games, and it's a nail-biter when you know exactly what the book needs, and it's just there at the very end, and it is. Nail-biter Sunday it was.
It's amazing when you look at it, Larry, too, because it's always nice to get that perspective. Because us as gamblers, if you're just taking a side, it's almost like you have the game in hand. Specifically looking at maybe the Atlanta Falcons game, you are blowing the Denver Broncos out of the water. And then all of a sudden, if you flip back up, the Broncos have the ball at the end of the football game with a chance to get an outright victory. It's wild how it comes down to. Now, usually, gamblers are looking at maybe 1, 2, or 3 games that might be shifting from a book's perspective, Larry. You guys look at the entire board, and it's almost like, if you could equate it to like election night, already up, now you're down, up and down, up and down. You just try to find that middle part. It's amazing to watch, Larry.
And nowadays, in the old days, you didn't have live wagering. Nowadays, you have the live wagering. So it's not just what the game is coming down to. It's what everybody's doing live. What are the lines are they getting in the last 7, 8 minutes of a game? Which way are they going? So it's it's a little bit like election night, man. Up and down and up and down. It was a crazy Sunday.
That was great stuff there. Welcoming everybody in the chat box. Abel's in here celebrating his Raiders once again. Vitalis is in here. Akbar, Tez, welcome in. We're going to have a great show here and go over an hour of NFL action. But for now, right now, we have Larry from WagerWeb having some fun. And we always like to have the gaming perspective here, right? When we look across the board. But also, we love the fan perspective. And if you guys have been following along each and every time Larry comes on, we know he is a Dolphins fan. And the Dolphins look like they are in good shape, not only from a head coaching position, not only from draft capital. You have a gamer. All those years we watched Tua at Alabama, we knew he could step up and shine in the brightest of moments, thrown into the mix, first NFL game. All you need to do is get the victory against the Rams. He did that. Then you needed him to perform game 2 in a tough environment out in Arizona against a very game Cardinals team. He looked fantastic in the third and fourth quarter, which is exactly what you want, Larry. How about those Miami Dolphins pulling off another victory for your boys?
That's like I was telling Kyle. It's hard getting used to a left-handed quarterback. I thought he did a great job. When he ran the ball, he didn't slide. He put his head down, and it was good to see that. You're looking at two quarterbacks. When Murray came out, everyone said he was too small. When Tua came out, everyone thought that the injury was going to hold him back. Yet we saw probably the best game on Sunday and probably one of the better games this season between those two guys. And it was just great to see that. Great to see Flores' defense coming through. It was just a great game. And as a Dolphin fan, couldn't ask for anything better. And getting the win, a lot of people were looking at the Cardinals, man. There was a lot of money on the Cardinals. And seeing the Dolphins take it up like that was fantastic.
Yeah, I was one of those suckers who had money on the Cardinals as well, so it was a little heartbreaking, but it was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, my goodness. And trust me, just embrace that left-handed rollout as a 49er fan. Watching Steve Young roll out, it's going to be exciting for 10 years. You're going to have all these bootleg defenses don't know how to defend it. It's going to be a lot of fun. But shifting over to the Sunday night game, I mean, we came into week 9, and I think most people would have said the Tampa Bay Bucs are the favorite in the NFC. They had one of the better offenses, Brady on fire, probably one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in the NFL. Then they get absolutely demolished by the Saints at home. Are you seeing more money come in on the Saints? Are they now the favorite in the NFC in your eyes?
I think in my eyes, them and the Packers are probably the 2 best teams in the NFC. I mean, you could talk about the Seahawks. They have the worst defense in the NFL, and that's not going to win games for you down the road. There was a lot of money shifting on Tampa Bay. People like to bet not so much Tampa Bay. They're betting Brady. And same way with New England when he was with New England. A lot of money shifted on Tampa Bay. And, you look at these last 2 games, the 2 times they played them the first game of the season, destroyed them the first game of the season. Now you're looking at, between the 2 games, I think Brady's been intercepted 5 times, sacked 6. And I think the Saints are a powerhouse in the NFC. I think it's, Drew Brees is leading the NFC in completion percentage. I think like 74%. Yeah. 3rd best defense in the NFL. People talk about the AFC a lot, but I think the Saints are a true team. I think we need to keep an eye on them going through the rest of the season.
Yeah, we'll see how it comes up too, Larry, because when you take a look at the Saints, we do know, Drew Brees looked very effective the past couple weeks. Let's not forget they were in the windy city of Chicago in the mid-30s, pulling out a victory over a pretty good Bears defense. Then you go down to Tampa Bay and a little bit of wind and rain, and that offense was awesome. And also keep in mind, they got 3 key performers back on the offensive unit at wide receiver for that game. They were lockstep each and every time, blowout at the half. They could have hung, as me and Kyle talked about on Sunday, 55, 60 points on that team for Tampa Bay, which we thought would be one of the better teams in the NFL on the defensive side of the football. But also, just from your perspective as well, because coming from a books advantage to what we look at as players, you see that game and everybody wants to jump on. Like, you just see that, like, just a week before, hey, Tampa's the best team, even though don't worry about their record. They get Antonio Brown moving forward. And that narrative completely changes the following week as over to the Saints. And even in the COVID-19 era, when you take a look at, hey, all it takes is one positive test and a guy could be out 2 to 3 weeks. From your angle here, looking at some of the money coming in or not even the money coming in, how should you play like the NFC? And keep in mind as well, we don't have any home field advantage. Like, you don't have to go to Seattle and beat the 12th man. Probably not going to have any fans there the rest of the year.
No, it's been a strange season. We all know that. I think the whole thing with Brady is that everybody talks about Antonio Brown. There was so much talk about Antonio Brown and the negativity brings. They're not even giving the guy a chance to really suit up and give him a couple of games under his belt, see what he could do for Brady. But here, anytime Brady is playing, anytime, just like New England, just like with Tampa Bay, the money, this week again, money line, it's opening up. There's a lot of action on New England again. Steelers and Bengals. I heard something about Roethlisberger now. We're not sure if he's going to play or not. I guess we'll know in a couple of days. But there's a lot of money going on the Bengals side on this game, which is hard to believe because it's a double digit. It's opened up at double digits. I think now it's 7. And so it's been a surprising year. It's just everyone's just doing things a little bit different than they did in previous years when you look at some of these games and the picks that our players are making.
No, you're exactly correct, because if you can take a look at anything from the past, just last week we saw a similar incident there with Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions going on that COVID reserve list, has to pass a couple tests, and by game day still had to pass a final test before they let him play. It is possible. We don't know how much Ben Roethlisberger was actually going to practice this week with the couple knee injuries there versus the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll see it, let it play out, but it's always interesting to see where the books set the line and they take him off the board. How do you react? Because again, we're not going to get to see him practice. So how are those knees actually holding up?
Well, the line hasn't moved. The line hasn't moved since this afternoon. I've been looking at it, and it's not only him. It's 4 starters on the Steelers that they think are under the COVID right now. They got to wait, I think, 3 to 4 days. But the line hasn't moved. They haven't taken it down, so it's still at 7. But yeah, we every game that we look at, you don't know what's going to happen 2 and 3 days into the week. Is are they going to have 4 players missing, 3 players missing? I think the books have handled it pretty well. It's the first time that we've seen something like this. It's not like somebody getting hurt playing basketball on his day off and the line moves because he's not going to play. This is every week. I appreciate these guys putting up these lines because they got a lot on their hands. It's a little bit different this year. They got a lot to worry about and a lot to think about before they put those lines up.
Yeah, I also like the NFL basically has that mindset, Larry, that says we're going ahead no matter what happens in these aspects. Because even when you look at Ben Roethlisberger, who was a close contact to McDonald, who did contact the COVID-19 virus, they sat together on the plane on the way home. So we'll see how that plays out the rest of this week. But it is interesting times in the NFL. Again, forging forward. Even if we do miss games, they're going to add a couple playoff games. They are destined to complete this season. So as we talk Week 10 heading into it, it's always a fun look earlier in the week. Now, I know Larry would like to get to the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants as his favorite plays of the week, but we will spare him that. You got a good Thursday night football game, Indianapolis and Tennessee. You got Seattle and the Rams. Where is Larry looking to have some fun this week in Week 10?
Well, I'll tell you what. I was looking at the Steelers-Bengals only because I think Joe Burrow is going to have a really breakout game soon. He's had quite a few. He just can't get the win. Steelers have the best sack defense in the NFLs, and Burrow has been sacked 28 times. And I was thinking maybe this week, and it shows there's been a little bit of action on the Bengals. I don't think the Steelers are going to go undefeated. They are going to lose, and that's because I'm a Dolphin fan, and every year I go through the same thing. But and also I like the Ravens game. I really do like the Ravens game in the 7 points this week. So I'm not even going to touch my Dolphins this week. Don't want to jinx them. I like the Ravens, and I like the Steelers-Bengals this week.
I'll tell you, Larry, one other game I'm looking at this week, and I'm curious to see maybe where some of the action's coming in on, especially this total at 56 and a half. Buffalo and Arizona. We saw these two the Arizona offense seems like they can't be stopped. The Buffalo offense got back on track this last week against Seattle. Both defenses very vulnerable. What's the early action coming in on that game, if there's any?
It's even right now, and my thought is I don't think Arizona's going to lose 2 in a row. I don't think Kyler Murray's going to allow that. As a Dolphin fan, I need to see Buffalo lose, and this is the one game that it might happen. But listen, those two teams, those two offenses are explosive, and Murray, man, I think he's got a great arm. I like the fact that he played his heart out this past week, didn't win. I don't see him losing 2 in a row. And I do think it will go way over. I really do. I think it's going to be just like this past week. All but 4 or 5 games went over, man. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
That is what we certainly like to look forward to. A lot of points, have some fun. Kyle, we know is big DFS guy. It's a lot of fun when hey, look, we always like those 14-10 games, but we need a bunch of those 31-28 type of things here. Larry from WagerWeb.eu, before we let you go, tell us a lot of good things here and what we can expect in the future from WagerWeb.
Well, guys, I'll tell you what, I want everybody out there to look closely and look forward to our Thanksgiving promo coming up Thanksgiving Thursday. We always put out a nice contest and promos for that week. So we're going to have a great Thanksgiving contest. We have our NFL weekly contest on a weekly basis. And, of course, great cash bonuses, great customer service, man. Looking forward to talking to a lot of people.
Love it. Big things ahead there. Thank you, Larry, once again for coming on Tuesdays. We really appreciate it. Very, affable with information, and we have fun having you on. Hope to see you in the future. And if we don't see you next week, hopefully we see you again on the next Tuesday after that. But great times again. And go Dolphins out there, Larry, huh?
Thank you, guys. Absolutely, man. You guys have a great week. Appreciate you letting me come on.
There we go. Hey, Kyle, we're suited and booted now, getting ready. He's already talking Thanksgiving. I want some turkey. I want to bet some football. Nice little triple header. I'm already ready to go.
Absolutely. I'm excited. And I love having Larry on, too. I love talking all that. And Thanksgiving promo, I'm going to have to see what kind of VPNs I can set up and get in over there at WagerWeb. I'm excited for all of that.
Turkey,
and I like the tuxedo.
Potatoes. I mean, I'm already there. I mean, I'm already ready to go on that. But we got some big stuff to go on Week 10. We always like when Larry comes on, always going to be a guest in the future. Very kind of him to come on and spend some time talking about from a bookmaker's perspective and also from a – look, they're real people too, right? Just because they're taking bets and booking and selling and stuff like that doesn't mean they don't root for a team. And Larry's in a nice little, honeymoon, I would say, right now with the Dolphins, seeing what they can do the rest of the year. But it's time to wrap up Week 9. Winners and losers in the NFL this past weekend. Kyle, go first. Give me a winner, give me a loser from what you saw out there on Week 9.
Well, I mean, obviously the big winner of the week was the New Orleans Saints. I mean, they put distance in between Tampa Bay. They established themselves as the favorite in the NFC. They went on the road in inclement weather, a place where Drew Brees typically doesn't perform well. They were getting all their weapons back really for the first time in weeks. Didn't seem to miss a beat and put an absolute beating on the Buccaneers. And I think another winner there in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills. I mean, when you have Russell Wilson and them come in, the way that offense had looked in the previous weeks. Now, I know the Seattle defense is nothing to write home about, but they looked absolutely unstoppable in that game. They never gave Russell Wilson a chance, from Jump Street. I thought Buffalo really improved this week, put a ton of distance between them and the AFC East. They're 7-2 now, their best start since the Jim Kelly days in 1996. Big win this week for Buffalo, and of course, big win for New Orleans.
Yeah, I do love my winner of the week. Definitely by far was Buffalo, because we're finally this is a 7-2 football team that it seemed like I keep on kicking each week. Like, when are you going to start playing? Well, they're actually 7-2 and playing decent football, but we were waiting on the offense to turn the corner. And in a game when you play the Seattle Seahawks, I don't care who your defense is. You're not stopping the Seattle Seahawks, which means it's up to your offense to go toe-to-toe. They were fantastic, including Josh Allen. How about Josh Allen? 31 of 38, 415 yards, and 3 passing touchdowns. That is sensational work. My loser of the week, I guess if you could go down and say, who's going to take the L? Probably, can you say the Chargers? But, they're in every single game, and they should, they're 2-6 right now. They actually should be 6-2, which is crazy to think about. So if we're talking about a loser organization that I guess now expects to lose, it would be the Chargers. How Chargers was it where they catch the winning touchdown pass? It's hidden from view on the first 2 replays. You're like, damn, Chargers actually just beat the Raiders, won a comeback. And then I see a Raiders defensive back running around the field like he dropped it. I'm like, I didn't see anything. They go to the 3rd replay, and it clearly bounced like a basketball off the turf. Chargers to take the victory there. So I guess just from a losing organization, they are going to get my loser of the week. Now, before we get to some other things and talk about, I want to talk about the new rules that are coming out here from the NFL. It seems like when you're the king of the hill, you don't have to change all that much. Do you want to make it more, hey, you can change NFL? Take the commercials out of a lot of the game. That's how you can change the NFL and make it a lot better, right? But as we take a look and we see what's going on The 4th and 15 rule, which keeps on surfacing, which is the stupidest rule I've ever seen or heard of. The goal in football is to play better than your opponent for 60 minutes, and the NFL and sports are not supposed to reward the team that is losing at the end of the game, similar to the NBA, that you can call a timeout and magic the dragon, poof, you get the ball in the front court for a chance to win the basketball game. It's outrageous that happens, but it is in the NBA, and that's what they like. Now, the NFL talking about going to a 4th and 15. If you convert it, you keep the football, which is ludicrous. The only way, Kyle, I see that works and makes sense is if you put that football on the 1 yard line. So if you do convert to 4th and 15, essentially you have to go 99 yards to punch that into the end zone. And the best part about it is, Kyle, if you incomplete pass, the other team gets the ball on the 1 yard line and punches it in for a touchdown, and then end of game at that scenario. Give me your thoughts on the 4th and 15. Good for, because, hey, you might have the opposite opinion as I do.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth. When they first introduced this, I was like, hell yeah, because I hate kickers, right? We all know I hate the kicking game. I hate kickoffs. I hate punting. I hate field goals. I can't stand kickers through and through. But really, when you look at this, why? I mean, not just in the NFL, but in this country in general, are we trying to reward losing and losers? Can we put a premium on winning, for Christ's sake? Like, listen, when I grew up, it wasn't, and I know we're, a little bit more PC nowadays, but when I grew up, it wasn't like, oh, well, I'm happy I lost, but I played my heart out and, I'm down. But like even in baseball, putting a runner in extra innings on second base, like get the hell out of here with this nonsense.
I'm an overbacker, Kyle, so I do like that. Go
ahead. See, there we go. I'm like, you know what? Let's earn the victory. And if you look at the onside kick, it's kind of gotten more interesting this year, more interesting than in years past. You're seeing these kickers do some of these goofy things with the kick. So I'm kind of into it. We've seen a lot of games swing on the 4th and 15. I mean, imagine you're playing the Chiefs and you work your ass off and you get the lead and you're like, oh, all Mahomes has to do is get 15 yards. That's a 3rd and 5 for Patrick Mahomes, a 4th and 15. So overall, I'm against it. I think it's kind of silly. It's time to stop rewarding losers. Let's reward some winning and hard effort for once. Good Lord.
Yeah, exactly. You don't just get the ball back. Kick the football off, give the other team. You walk off with the loss. If you can't win over the first 59 minutes and you're hoping to steal a game like the last minute, come on now, enough with it. Another interesting rule that came out today, which I completely disagree with again, is if now the NFL is trying to make change. The Rooney rule came in, and rightfully so, because how you get a coaching job in the NFL is impressing ownership that might not have a chance to hear you out or even have an opinion on you. So if you are a minority coach, you now have to be interviewed, at least have to interview one candidate and get in front of the front office. So you say, man, that guy was really good. Even though I might not hire him now, I'm going to file that away for this coach being really good, and that makes it circle around the league and makes complete sense in a fair hiring process. Now we see the NFL coming up with an idea that either was pushed through today or is on its final ballot, is if you hire a minority candidate away from another football team, you don't get the extra draft pick. The team that you hired him from does. So let me play this out for you, Kyle, hypothetically, right? I'm Bill Belichick right now. And I'm like, you know what? I really want a good GM. Hey, the Jets have a really good GM, and he's a minority, which he isn't right now, but just play it out here. Yeah. Am I, Bill Belichick, going to hire that guy from the Jets to come to play for me and, in effect, then give the Jets 2 third-round picks directly to your rival? Who thinks of these idiotic things for an NFL team to come up with a response and say, hey, this really makes sense? Do you think an NFL team that wants to hire a guy away, if the best man for the job is in the division, they're not going to do that? You fight tooth and nail with your opponents. You're not going to hire a guy and then hand them 2 third-round picks to try to build a team to beat your team. The best man in the NFL always gets the job. I can't even believe this is even a thought process from the NFL. There's so many better ways to go about doing this, including the Rooney rule, that this nonsense has to take place when NFL teams are now going to hold it against a minority candidate in ways, say, hey, if I have another guy who I think is just as good for the job, I'm not going to hire you because you're from in the division and I have to give up 3 picks. I'm just going to hire the other guy. It's ludicrous, man.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, I'm all for having that equality in the NFL, and Lord knows they need it. But instead of doing this weird sort of rewarding from taking away, how about you just punish the teams that are clearly racist and clearly not following the rule? I think that's the
they'll lose though. But yeah, exactly. Like I agree. Like they'll lose. Like if you're not hiring the best coach because he's a minority, you're a moronic franchise to begin with, and you're going to be destined to lose anyway. Yep.
Exactly. And you make up a great point. Like, of course, like if you have a fantastic minority candidate, but he's in your division. You don't want to give him the pick. So now you're hurting what you're trying to help. It makes absolutely no sense. It's like telling your kids, hey, we don't want you to eat the candy with the razor blade in it. And then you see a razor stick. You're like, go ahead and eat that just doesn't make any damn sense. The NFL, sometimes I think they are trying too hard to, sort of heal their image without thinking these things through. And, it's not like Roger Goodell is a genius in any way, shape, or form. So, it's just a stupid idea, stupid rule. Punish the teams who aren't following the rule. And trust me, they will be punished because a vast majority of these minority candidates, I mean, we see it with Mike Tomlin and all throughout the league. Eric Bieniemy will be a head coach, are terrific candidates. So if you're going to be ignorant and going to be racist in your hiring policies, you should be punished there, and you will be punished in the long run in terms of free agency and on-field results as well. So let that play out. Punish the teams for not following the policy. Don't make up these weird rules that are really going to end up hurting the candidates in the long run, in my opinion.
Yeah, and how about the double down on this? We see it right now in the AFC East. How about the Miami Dolphins not hiring Brian Flores from the New England Patriots because they would have had to give up 2 third-round picks and then went out and hired some bozo, and they look terrible right now. Case in point right there. You know how to get more minority hires in the NFL? When you hire them and they do a good job, everybody follows along suit because the Sean McVays of the world, when he does well, hey, let's go out and get the next guru on offense. Well, if a defensive coordinator takes a job as a head coach and dominates in football, everybody's going to try to mimic that. People mimic success in the NFL. You don't have to reward them for nonsense there. And even if it should be opposite, right? If I hire a minority coach, I get the extra third-round pick, not the guy I hired him from. Good Lord, the NFL is so backwards in so many objects. But let's move on. Yeah. We got a lot of stuff to get to here. Real quickly on Sunday, gutty win by Baltimore in Indianapolis. That was a great old school hardcore football game, which the Colts, to me, if you watch the first half, and you know me, I had my banker bet on the Baltimore Ravens, ended up with a victory. Look at the final score. Hey, it was a blowout. That wasn't the case if you watch that, man. They couldn't do anything in the first half, and I'm at the point going, Lamar Jackson stinks. He can't play anymore. They figured him out. Yeah. But that Baltimore team is schooled, Kyle. They are tough, and they put out a nice victory on the road against the Colts.
Yeah, and thank God we got that customary defensive touchdown from Phillip Rivers and all of that. But it did look iffy at first. They pulled it out in the second half. Look, those are two good defenses, right? So it's not like we expected it to be easy. Probably a little tougher than we thought. Lamar got going in the second half. But I do think the fact remains Lamar Jackson has really regressed this year. Teams have figured him out a little bit. 24-10. I also bet on Baltimore, so I was a little bit nervous there in the first half. But, nice win for Baltimore. It's going to be big in the conference. And also a big loss for Indianapolis, fighting with Tennessee for that divisional win. They're one of those teams probably going, hey, let's get a couple games canceled. Let's get that 8th playoff team so that we can ensure our playoff berth, right? And Lord knows Tennessee is happy to oblige there in the division. So you have to see, but a nice win by Baltimore, a big win. They needed it. And the Colts, another tough one here on Thursday night.
Yeah, we'll skip over a couple things. I want to spend a little bit of time on this card here. But real quick, Kansas City and the AFC. Yeah. It seems like they're under the radar, Kyle. Because we know how good they are. It's like, we know they're good, so you don't pay attention. You try to pick some underlings. Hey, the Steelers are undefeated. They should be there. You know it's coming down to Kansas City because if they're somewhat healthy, at least on offense, they just go toe-to-toe. And defense doesn't matter against Kansas City. When they're down, look, hey, Carolina came to play. Fake punts, taking the early lead, up by a touchdown or more. You were expecting Kansas City to come back, and they did. Completely the favorites for me in the AFC.
Yeah, I know Pittsburgh's undefeated and all that rigmarole, but who are you taking over Kansas City? I mean, we did this on Monday Night Football, and we kind of got duped into Baltimore. And look, the answer is clear. No lead is safe. Trust me, as a 49er fan, I'm heartbreakingly aware of that fact. No lead is safe against Patrick Mahomes. And look, I know Carolina scored some points on them this week, and that wasn't that big of a shocker. But I'm telling you, that secondary, especially with Bashaud Breeland back, once Charvarius Ward tightens up a little bit, they're going to be a hard team to beat. You're going to have to try to run the football and get your running backs involved to beat them. And most of the time, that is not going to get it done against Mahomes and that offense. They can score any which way you think. They can score in 1 minute, in 10 minutes. It does not matter. The Chiefs got to be the favorite in the NFC and probably the favorite to win the Super Bowl in the NFL. There's no team I can think of that I would actually pick to beat them on a neutral field.
Yeah, no, it's a good football team, but it'll be fun to see it play out. And again, a lot of COVID still to be determined because injury information. Mahomes goes down, completely changes it up, and it's football. It's no surprise that a quarterback can get injured. We've even seen Mahomes escape injury last year. How about if that knee injury was serious against the Denver Broncos and he doesn't play the rest of the year? Andy Reid doesn't get a Super Bowl championship. So that's always the intriguing part about the NFL. Let's not waste any more time. Let's hit this Week 10 card, have some fun. It's a great show because I love talking things out. Do I have every game capped? No, I don't. Are there things out there that I still need to look up? Absolutely. But that's why we come on Tuesday and talk about the opening lines edition. So now we can have some fun. Thursday Night Football, really good game. Usually you don't get the marquee matchup, but we're getting a good one here. Indianapolis and Tennessee. Phillip Rivers going to go on the road versus Ryan Tannehill. We take a look last week. Nice job, nice win by the Tennessee Titans over the Chicago Bears. It's an interesting game when you look at because, you say the Bears think they scored late. The Bears racked up a lot more yardage than the Tennessee Titans did in that football game, and vice versa. When you take a look at Indianapolis, they actually were the better football team overall to me on the field. They just didn't make any plays in the second half, but they really held that explosive Baltimore offense, even though Baltimore got 24 points, gifted in the end, which I loved with that late field goal because they had to go for it on 4th and 5, which set up an easy field goal for the Baltimore Ravens to close that out, and also a strip fumble at midfield that was returned for a touchdown. That's 10 points off the board there, which makes that a completely different ball game. When I take a look, and this year it seems a lot different. You guys know me, betting football games on Thursday night, I usually look for the home team or no team. But now factoring in this COVID era, the home field advantage is gone. Obviously you have to travel and you don't get enough practice time, but that third ring on there, Kyle, was going into the opposing team's den and getting screamed at for 3 hours where you can't hear on offense. No longer the case. The Indianapolis Colts are going to step up to the plate in this one. Opened up at 2.5, now sits at 2. Even FanDuel, New Jersey at -1.5. And I got to say, Kyle, I agree with the line movement. I am liking the Indianapolis Colts here early in the week.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Indianapolis and you look at Phillip Rivers and what you want for that offense, what you're hoping for is a clean pocket and time to throw with no pressure. Well, who's the worst pass rushing team in the NFL? It's the Tennessee Titans. You'd prefer them in a dome. You go look at the weather. Right now it's projected, mid-50s to low 60s, hardly any wind, so it's going to be a nice night. No pass rush, a terrible secondary, even though you're minus some weapons there in the passing game. We'll see if T.Y. Hilton's able to go, and who really cares. But this is a beatable Tennessee defense with no pass rush. And he's going to have a clean pocket. And then you look at the Indianapolis side. Obviously, Tennessee, a fantastic offense, weapons all over the field. A.J. Brown really emerging into one of these elite young wide receivers. He's a lot of fun to watch. But the Colts, they have a great defense. They should be able to slow down Tennessee. This is a huge game for the division. I think right now, when you just look at the strengths and weaknesses of each team, I got to take the Colts. And if I'm getting a couple of points, I feel even better about that. So early in the week, I know we'll go over this more Thursday in our closing line shows and some prep props, and we'll see the injury reports. Right now, I got to lean the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, Colts also look like they are going to get T.Y. Hilton back, which is a major. Now, again, he hasn't had a great year, but it's a guy that can open up the field for the rest of the ball, the rest of the team, and that should help. But also just a little numbers here to chew on, Kyle. When you take a look at Tennessee, they beat a lot of, not really good football teams, to say the least, on defense. When they stepped up in class and played some elite defenses in the NFL, which the Indianapolis Colts are, take a look at this. Versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're talking about Tennessee here, 302 total yards. How about last week versus the Bears? You thought it was a dominating performance? 228 yards versus the Bears defense. This is a football team that averages 385 yards a game. When they step up in competition, they are well below their average, and they're going to get a punch in the mouth from a healthy Indianapolis defense. Just something to keep on. But Kyle's right. We'll talk about it more on Thursday and certainly get those pencils sharpened and get ready to go. 251, 252 on Sunday. It is a 425 game, but we're actually going to go through this as it was in rotational order. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, the big news today, Big Ben Roethlisberger sitting out of practice this week, has to clear 5 days of protocol. Maybe they get him back Saturday. Maybe they get him back Sunday. But also keep in mind, he hurt both of his knees in the Dallas Cowboys game, still was able to return to that game. But Big Ben is built like a building. That is a lot of weight to put on those knees. So maybe you think they're going to focus more on the ground game and short passes coming into Cincinnati. That line opened up, as Larry said, at 10 and still on the board at some outlets. I haven't checked the books, but I'm just looking at the odds board here at SBRodds.com. FanDuel down to a 6.5 with a total of 45.5. It's a tough game for me to get a read on because you got a rested and ready Cincinnati team that looks to get back Joe Mixon, a team that looks like it's limping a little bit now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But having said that, the one thing that Cincinnati can't deal with is a heavy pass rush, and it's coming to town with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of quick passes. And, one thing you got to say, that Pittsburgh secondary is looking more and more vulnerable. Garrett Gilbert shouldn't have looked that good last week. They are very strong with Joe Hayden on the one side and Minkah Fitzpatrick, but Steven Nelson and Mike Hilton, and even when Mike Hilton doesn't play, they've seemed pretty vulnerable. And I got to tell you, Joe Burrow, I bet against him early in the year, but now just taking him to cover week by week, we remember they just dominated the Titans before their bye week, a team where Pittsburgh almost gave up a lead to, and it ended up being a 3-point game. So even though I do think the Steelers are the better team, and I do think they cover, you more than likely are going to see Big Ben play unless he tests positive one of these couple of days. As long as he tests negative, he's going to play. But I think the Bengals cover no matter who's at quarterback. And if Mason Rudolph plays, I might be jumping on the Bengals money line because Mason Rudolph's an absolute trash can at quarterback. Absolutely god-awful. But right now, I think 7.5 is too much. I like the quick passing game for Cincinnati. I think they can cover this game. I'm a Joe Burrow backer. So give me the Bengals early in the week.
Yeah, no, getting over a touchdown, they should be able to compete in this. And the one thing we know about the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are leaving the door open for some comebacks. And let's not forget, this was the same team, Kyle, against the Dallas Cowboys, was down double digits to that football team and pulled out. Now, the sign of a good team is coming back and winning football games, yes, but it is a little bit alarming. And maybe Ben, who loves to hold the football, Kyle, to get his wide receivers that extra second, maybe he can't do that this weekend. So we'll see what happens. Washington and Detroit, if you watch the football game, another quarterback's leg goes absolutely sideways, and this time was Kyle Allen for the Washington Redskins. In comes Alex Smith. Now, it's some interesting circumstances because when you take a look and say, wow, man, Alex Smith, 300 yards passing, that's amazing. Maybe he's back to his old ways. Keep in mind, this game was 20-3 at the half, and he did a lot of dinking and dunking. When your running back gets 9 catches, that sounds like an Alex Smith start to me. He did have some explosive plays there. Sims looked very good at wide receiver, as well as Terry McLaurin moving forward. I have to say, though, I think you get an honest effort out of Alex Smith. He's a great guy in an underdog role to keep the game close, even though he threw for 3 interceptions on Sunday. Came right down to the wire, threw 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, which kept them from a victory, but a sound defensive performance by the Washington football team. I'm going to keep saying Redskins so they get a new name. But looking at this game overall, I got to tell you, early in the week, if that line stays at 4, which it is, which most of the outlets have it off the board, I actually like Washington in a dog role here, Kyle. I do.
Yeah, I'm tend to agree. This game's really tough for me. It's like, oh God, am I trusting Alex Smith really on half a leg on the road? Or am I trusting Matthew Stafford and this Lions defense who can't stop anybody? Now, luckily for Detroit, Washington doesn't have a great running game, although McKissick's been very, very good out of the backfield. He's kind of been a waiver wire darling for me, making up for some of these injuries I've had at running back on my fantasy football team. And I'll tell you what, a receiving back with Alex Smith at quarterback could really succeed, and I think you're going to see a lot about that in this game. Of course, McKissick did play for Detroit last year, a little bit of a revenge narrative there. God, it's tough. I think I'm with you. I just like the effort that Washington puts in, and when I rewatch Detroit games, Matt Patricia, he might be right up there with Mike McCarthy. He makes dumb decisions, and some of the play calls, you're just like, what are you guys doing? I don't understand it. Detroit could be without Kenny Golladay again as well. I think that Washington defense is a little bit underrated. So right now I think I'm with you. I'll take the points and lean Washington. Very, very tough game. Probably a game that I'm running away with my own money and not touching. But since we're picking every game here on the show, I think early in the week I will lean towards the Washington football Schneidus.
How about this one? 255, 256, Houston and Cleveland. Deshaun Watson. I wanted to make sure and go back and watch that Jacksonville-Houston game. And because I really wanted to take a look at Luton, a quarterback who's a competent quarterback, made some nice throws, but also some rookie mistakes where he had a couple balls that were easy interceptions dropped. But I want to focus in on Houston. I'm so like they dropped Bill O'Brien, and we all know Deshaun Watson is a fantastic quarterback. He was elite again. I mean, this guy can make every throw, avoid every pass rush, knows when to run. They kept his wide receivers intact. Will Fuller had a big impact on that football game when they're looking to give him away for like a second round or third round draft pick, which is ludicrous. Let this guy cook like Russell Wilson. The defense stinks just like Seattle, and maybe they're not as good or pedigree as Seattle, but this kid can play. Now they're going to go in the underdog role. Opened up at 2.5 on the road to take on the Cleveland Browns, seeing threes across the board. An over-under that opened up at SBRodds.com at 54. Now sits at 53, 53.5. I got to tell you, it's hard to take Houston, Kyle, because the defense is so bad. But when I look on the opposite field, Baker Mayfield learning virtually this week because he's still in one of those COVID reserve type roles. And maybe we do get Nick Chubb back, because if you have a 1-2 punch of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb against Houston, you should be able to move the football. But I keep seeing Houston hanging around in this football game, and I'm going to be watching that line because it is double juiced at Bet365 and FanDuel, 3.5 at some outlets, even at DraftKings and also Bet Rivers. I'm interested in Houston. It's like they stink, but they are playing. Since Bill O'Brien is gone, it's a competent football team out there now.
Yeah, and the Cleveland and Houston run, both teams cannot stop the run. They're absolutely atrocious. This is a really tough game. I know Baker Mayfield's dealing with the COVID thing. I'm assuming he'll be off the list and should be able to play or practice.
Decent weather.
Decent weather. It's a tough game to take a side on. I do think if Nick Chubb is back, I'd probably lean Cleveland slightly. Obviously, the quarterback advantage goes to Houston. Deshaun Watson is 5 times the quarterback Baker Mayfield will ever be. Just that defense is so bad. Can you trust them on the road? This is another tough game. There's some tough games this week.
There is.
I think early in the week, I might go the other side and just take the home team and take the 2.5, 3 points. Especially if Chubb is back. That Houston run defense is awfully weak, and it's not like they were overly impressive against Jake Luton has put up some plays. DJ Chark looked pretty good. If it wasn't for some big plays by Cooks and Will Fuller, it could be a different story. So right now, I will lean Cleveland, feel very nervous about it, and I do think there's points in this game. I think you're right. Over 53 makes a lot of sense, but again, everything's got to go right. There's not a ton of value there, and this is not Patrick Mahomes where you can afford a field goal only in the first quarter, and you're going to get all these points back, so you need everything to go right. But right now, I would lean Cleveland and the over.
27 thumbs up out there in the chat box. We do appreciate that very much. 150 people watching live, spending their Tuesday with us, talking a little bit about opening lines in the NFL. As we talk, Kyle, about the Cleveland Browns, because, again, it's a lot about who you played and what you've done damage with. Houston, we can agree, not a very good defense. Let's take a look at the Cleveland Browns against not very good defenses here. Opening day against a good defense, he scored 6 points against Baltimore. So that's the narrative, that if you play a really good defense, you can shut down Baker Mayfield. Now let's jump to the bad teams. They hang 35 on Cincinnati, 34 on Washington, 49 on Dallas, 37 on Cincinnati. Now you say, oh, well, Donnie, they played the Las Vegas Raiders and they only scored 16 points. That was in a monsoon, wind-blowing sideways type of game. If you throw that out against bad defenses, you get this 1-2 punch back. And it's actually a shame because I'm not a huge Odell Beckham guy per se, but this is one of those games off play action where he would eat alive that Houston defense. We'll see how Jarvis Landry handles it, Hollywood Higgins on the outside. But the comments in the chat box are correct. They're going to eat on the ground. It's just a matter of, are they going to stick with it, and you get a decent Baker Mayfield game. But still early in the week here looking, I just think Houston has the ability to stick around here. 257, 258. Hey, nice little segue here, talking about Jacksonville and Jake Luton going on the road to take on the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers are soft on defense, but you would be a fool to not see the last time they took the field against the 49ers with a full capacity team. And still, Bakhtiari is probably the best left tackle, if not the best pass blocking left tackle in the NFL. Didn't play in that game. You got Aaron Jones back. You got a healthy Devontae Adams. They can cook out there, and you're going against a Jacksonville team that doesn't offer all that much resistance. But as we say, Kyle, we're gamblers. We're not picking the game straight up. It's a 14-point line. Are we trusting what we saw with Luton, who has the ability to go deep and make some plays, or is this one of those where Green Bay says, hey, I'm hitting 38 points. See if you could chase me down?
Yeah, it's something to watch. This is actually the one game where there is a little bit of weather concerns early on in the week. Of course, we got to wait till Sunday, and I'm no damn meteorologist, but this one report I saw, maybe 24-mile-an-hour winds and temperatures in the low 40s, if that's right. So if that happens, then you're going to look at a lot of running, and we just talked about it. Green Bay cannot stop the run. They are absolutely atrocious at stopping the run. They are soft up front. I don't actually think Matt LaFleur is that good of a head coach either. When you look at it, it's going to be the Aaron Rodgers show at Lambeau. Aaron Rodgers is fantastic at Lambeau. His winning percentage there is through the roof compared to on the road. But again, who wants to bet double-digit favorites? It's just not something. This is a game where I'm probably going to be looking at a first half total, maybe a team total. I don't know if I'm betting that 13. If I'm going to lean one side right now, it would be Green Bay. I don't think Jacksonville. When you look at that secondary for Green Bay, it is pretty good, and Jair Alexander should give some problems to DJ Chark, et cetera. Need to rewatch their games from last week, see a little bit more of Jake Luton. Right now, I'd lean Green Bay, but I do not love those double-digit lines. One of those ones I'm probably staying away from. And keep an eye on the weather in this game, too. Could affect that over-under, could drop that. Maybe the under early in the week if this is going to be some bad weather is one way I would lean here.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the schedule for the Green Bay Packers. I mean, when they have both that combination healthy, and even though Devontae Adams has missed some games, you can take a look at the Minnesota game, 28-22. They didn't have Aaron Jones in that game. Still had a chance to maybe score the winning touchdown late in the game, but were stopped by Minnesota. But outside of that, and of course that Tampa Bay game, which was 38-10, you put up 43 against Minnesota, 42 versus Detroit, 37 versus New Orleans, 30 versus Atlanta, 35 versus Houston, 34 versus San Francisco. Again, that common theme, when you're playing a lower level type defense, which you do have in Jacksonville, you can put up some numbers. But me and Kyle will tell you all the time, in order to get those big numbers and totals, you need to have a dog running with you. Maybe Luton and the Jacksonville Jaguars come into this game and say, hey, look, it is windy conditions. Let's keep it on the ground. They can't stop the run. We'll force feed the ground game. That can kill a team total, and rightfully so. As we take a look at that total, 53.5 it opens up. I'm seeing 51.5 at some outlets, including Bet365 out of New Jersey. Let's keep going here. My Philadelphia Eagles, 259, 260. Carson Wentz versus Daniel Jones. One thing you could say about the New York Giants, they are playing hard. They picked up a victory last week against the Washington Redskins. Underdogs on the road, maybe got a little bit of a bump from knocking the quarterback out. Held on at the end because Washington was driving twice and got intercepted, which is a credit to the defense. And certainly, no doubt, playing hard. But now as you take a look, if you look at the last game that the Eagles played against the Giants, double digits, the Giants had a lead with like 6 minutes to go and ended up blowing that game. But if you try to envision how this plays out, the Eagles are coming off a bye, but that's not even the most important part of this. The last time the Eagles played the Giants and still beat the Giants, Lane Johnson got hurt in that football game. Dallas Goedert didn't play in that football game. Alshon Jeffrey didn't play in that football game. Kevon Wallace, the safety, didn't play in that football game. Miles Sanders didn't play in that football game. The best linebacker the Eagles have, TJ Edwards, did not play in that football game. Isaac Seumalo, their starting right guard, did not play in that football game. Malik Jackson, their starting defensive tackle, did not play in that football game. Everybody I just mentioned on that list looks like they're probably going to go on Sunday versus the Giants. I don't know how both that ends up well, but the one thing I do know, the Eagles really struggle beating the Eagles. Now, a key number is going to come up. Opened up at 3, goes to 3.5. I completely agree with that. If we're getting nice weather up in the Meadowlands, I do think the Giants can approach 20 points, and I think the Eagles are going to win. I think it's a decent shot for an over. So if you got that 41 early in the week, congratulations, but it's now sitting at 44. I think we get points, and we do get an Eagles victory in this one again.
Yeah, when I first looked at this yesterday, that's one of the numbers I circled was that low total in this game. I like all these players coming back for Philadelphia. And quite frankly, look, Philly has a good pass rush, a good front seven. And what happens to Daniel Jones when he's under pressure? He turns the football over. Now, he might run for some yards. He's a terrific running young quarterback, and he's got all the tools. I just think Philadelphia getting healthy, that front seven, I actually like them quite a bit at -3, -3.5 with some better odds there. -3.5, I like that quite a bit. I think the Eagles win this game. I think they win it by a touchdown, and I do like the over. I think both teams can get in the 20s here. The Giants are going to be throwing the ball and coming from behind. Give me the Eagles. Give me the over. All these weapons coming back from Carson Wentz. We should see a different player. I like the Eagles. I like them quite a bit early in the week. One of my favorite picks early in the week so far.
Yeah, you're right, because when you take a look at Pro Football Focus, number 1 overall pass rush in the NFL is the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know who's a close second? The Philadelphia Eagles, and that always is going to play a part, specifically if you're winning that game. The one thing you have to sometimes it comes down to if your tight end has brick hands or not for that football game in order for you to win, because if brick hands caught a ball, we're talking about Evan Ingram versus the Eagles, they beat the Eagles, but he didn't catch it, and we don't expect him to catch it. And if you watch the game last week versus the Washington Redskins, brick hands tipped one up in the air earlier in the game that was intercepted easily. It's amazing how talented Evan Ingram is, but continues to kill the Giants on offense, one of those double-edged swords. Tampa Bay and Carolina. What did we like out of Tampa Bay Sunday Night Football? Absolutely nothing. But Kyle, you know I like pain. You know I like a lot of pain. So when I see a team that stunk the week before, I dig my claws in and try my best to take them the very next week in a buy low strategy. And this is another one here. Line opens up at 6. I'm now seeing 4.5 at Chris Offshore at SPRodds.com, one of the sharpest books. And over-under opened up at 48, now sitting at 50.5. The big news of the week, what's going to take place with Christian McCaffrey in, out, late in the football game versus the Kansas City Chiefs. He was rocking and rolling and hallelujah, hurts his shoulder again, might miss some time. But we don't like what we saw out of Tampa Bay. That doesn't mean they're not a competent football team or can be good. They still have the capability of a dominant pass rush and a good defense, and that offense sooner or later is going to get rocking and rolling. Road team, tough Sunday night game. I'm looking for Tampa Bay here, not going to lie, Kyle.
Yeah, and we got to keep an eye on Christian McCaffrey. Hurt his shoulder right at the second to last play of that
terrible,
game.
Man. Damn.
And we saw, I know Mike Davis filled in admirably for him when he was gone. But now, we saw Christian McCaffrey comes back in 1 week and gave the Chiefs all they could handle. Absolutely amazing return to the field. It really was. And now if you're going back to Mike Davis against a pissed off Tampa Bay team, terrific against the run, just got absolutely embarrassed on Sunday Night Football. And we're looking at, yesterday when I looked at this, what was it, 6? I think when I was looking, now it's all the way down to 4.5. Yeah, give me the Bucs on the road. I think they come in here and beat the brakes off Carolina. They're going to be mad. They're going to be really mad. And if they don't have Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, I think it makes things even easier for Tampa Bay. So right now, I got to go with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, talking about some games, Daniel Pacheco, it's a division matchup with the Giants. I think it comes down to a field goal to win. It's been a close game, and it should be. The Eagles do seem to pull these games out with the Giants, and Mark Alessio is right. Ingram will be in 95% of every DFS lineups. He's very athletic. He scored a touchdown this week, but it doesn't mean that he can't be a bonehead and kill the team at certain targets. So we'll see if that plays out this weekend in that game. But an interesting game for Carolina. I do think Tampa Bay bounces back. And if I have one thing to tell Bruce Arians, Kyle, in this game, you have a running back in Ronald Jones that is a lead back. Hand the football off in that game and work off of play action, and you will score in the 30s every game. The fact that they ran the football like 5 times in a game against the New Orleans Saints, I don't understand sometimes the game plan. And then you bring Leonard Fournette in, your best running back, feed him the football. It all works off him. You saw when they were running hot, Kyle. Ronald Jones II, 3 straight 100-yard games, cruising around the field. Then all of a sudden you try to play mix match and mix in Leonard Fournette, and it all goes wrong. Let the young kid eat out there, and that offense will be fine. Let's keep moving down the list here. 265, 266, Denver and Las Vegas. Both teams last week, interesting games. Denver looked terrible for 3 quarters. Furious comeback comes up short against the Atlanta Falcons. Then we take a look at the Vegas Raiders, who looked like they were going to get dink and dunked out of the football game late, and it looked like a late touchdown by Justin Herbert put the game away, only to be dropped. Now we see this line open up at 4.5 offshore, and it's risen to 5s and 5.5s. And I have to say, I like the Denver Broncos. I think they're a pretty good young football team, just an enigmatic quarterback. Jerry Jeudy's really good. You don't know what you're going to get week to week. We'll see some of the injury information coming back because, again, you're talking about the Atlanta game. What was the big news we talked about Sunday? Down Bryce Callahan, down A.J. Boyd. That doesn't bode well for your defense. They might be getting both of those guys back this week, which will help going against some of those elite wide receivers and certainly a downfield passing game. Not worried about any conditions here with, saying, hey, it's cold in Denver, it's 30 degrees. It's not, obviously, because the game is going to be played in the Dome down in Vegas. Do we trust the Vegas Raiders at this 5.5 number as opposed to maybe a dog or something lower? Maybe points in this one, but I need to see who's playing and who's not playing for the Denver Broncos this week to make a determination. But I got to tell you, I don't know if I like the Vegas Raiders at that 5.5, but I'm not trusting the Denver Broncos if I don't think Denver can go in and win this game outright. You see what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I know they made the comeback against Atlanta, but who doesn't come back against Atlanta?
And they were horrible when the game mattered. You know what I mean? It's tough.
Exactly. And hey, thank God they made that comeback because we were on the Drew Lock, Jerry Jeudy train all week. The Noah Fant injury is something to keep an eye on. That was sort of a bummer. I saw someone
also out for the year as well. Blew his
and I saw someone in the chat saying, "Oh, Evan Ingram will be in 95% of my DFS lineups." Don't ever play a tight end at 95%. You got to mix it up because you don't know what's going to happen at tight end. It's the worst position in all of DFS. Oh, Britt, yeah. You just can't trust, even though the Eagles are terrible against tight ends. Yep. But it's tough. 5.5. These AFC West games tend to be pretty close. We just saw it with the Raiders and the Chargers. I don't think there's a lot of difference between those 3 teams, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Broncos. The Raiders are finding ways to win, certainly the better coached of the 3 teams. Drew Lock, am I a big believer in Drew Lock? Not really. Am I a big believer in Derek Carr? Not really. 5.5 seems like a lot. Maybe if this was at 3, I would consider it 2.5 or 3. I would consider the Raiders. 5.5 seems a bit high. I think it's a close game that the Raiders probably win, but especially if Boye and Callahan come back. I think Denver covers, but another really tough game that I'm not racing to bet on this week.
Yeah, no bargains, man. 52,
Yeah.
That used to be the high end of the spectrum. Now it just seems that's the middle of the road type stuff here. I'll tell you a good game that we're going to look at here, 267, 268. Buffalo goes out west and plays Arizona. Two athletic quarterbacks, two offenses that can ramp it up and score some points, and some defenses that are a little bit left in the lurch. Now, last week we finally saw Buffalo get off the schneid, and what we thought could be their offense from the first couple weeks of the season reappeared against a really porous Seattle defense. Not a huge upgrade in defense, maybe a little bit better defense here out of the Arizona Cardinals that we'll see. But my question is, did Buffalo put a lot into that effort last week? Got a nice win against Seattle. We're 7-2. We're paving our way to a division. And then you see Arizona. We saw Kyler Murray after the game. That wasn't a happy team that felt they should have handled the Miami Dolphins and let one slip away. The one thing I do know, quarterbacks are going to make plays in this game. But again, we're talking about 56 points. But hey, I looked last week and said, hey, man, 56, 57 points. Everything has to go right in that Seattle game. Everything did go right in that Seattle game. So they moved it up and down the field. And I think we'll get points in this one as well. Are we trusting Arizona as a favorite? Because they open up at -1 and it's quickly shifted across the board some 2.5s. Might it be one of those things where you wait on the Bills to see if you can get a 3? Or if you like Arizona and say, Donnie, they're going to win the football game, you might as well take them at under 3 here.
Yeah, man, it's tough. And, you got Buffalo going from the East Coast to the West Coast after a huge win. And, are they all that concerned about the rest of the division, even though Miami is looking decent? These two defenses, especially that Arizona defense is really, really bad. I mean, my God, they are being torched by every offense that they play. I mean, Tua had 90 yards passing against the Rams the week before. He comes out and he looks like Steve Young reincarnated in week 2, but a little bit faster. And then you look at Buffalo, they can't really stop anyone either, but they were much, much better against Seattle. I know Seattle put up some points late, but they were much better. I got to lean Buffalo. If I'm going to get a 7-2 team coming off the biggest win of the year, getting a couple of points against a bad defense in Arizona, I think right now I got to lean the Bills, and you're right, I would lean the over, but you do need a whole hell of a lot to go right. One fumble, one missed field goal, and you're struggling to get to that 56.
No, you're absolutely right. When you take a 269, 270, Seattle, fresh off a beating there by the Buffalo Bills, now goes out and plays the Los Angeles Rams. That game is going to be, again, in nice weather conditions because it is a dome. Jared Goff, that enigmatic quarterback, when the offense is right, he can look like an all-pro, but when he's under pressure and a little bit flustered in the pocket, he can look disastrous and makes us go, why the hell did I bet on Jared Goff this week? But as we take a look at the line, opens up at 1.5, a rested and ready Rams team that now ramps up to 2 across the board, over under extremely high again, as you're going to get week in and week out when you take a look at the Seattle Seahawks coming to town. The question is, do you think that Rams offense can operate and go against Seattle, who how porous their defense is? You're now not looking, because what gives every team problems, specifically the Seattle Seahawks? If you put an athletic quarterback against that defense that says, not only do you not have a pass rush, I can evade the pass rush, you put up points. But Jared Goff is not that type of quarterback. But as I say that, we saw the last time they took the field, 28-17. If you didn't look at that score, and I told you that the Rams had 340 yards passing and 131 yards on the ground, and they ended up losing that game decisively 28-17. Their defense only gave up 55 yards on the ground and 90 in the air. They haven't allowed a 300-yard passer the entire season. The most they allowed was to the Buffalo Bills, 274. There's even some games here like the Miami Dolphins, 90 yards they give up in the air. The Washington Redskins, 70 yards. The New York Giants, 159 yards. That's an elite defense. And the one thing you need to get after Russell Wilson, number 99 at defensive tackle, has.
Yeah, exactly. Like right now, that Seattle defense is so terrible. And you bring up a great point. Like Jared Goff, you can never trust him. And sometimes he looks great. And other times he looks like Ben DiNucci out there. Your boy, Ben DiNucci, jersey's on its way, I'm sure. But look, the Rams defense is exponentially better. The Seahawks might just be the worst defense in the league. And I am talking about Jacksonville and Dallas and everyone else. That Seattle defense is abysmal. They couldn't stop Buffalo last week for anything. Now, obviously, Josh Allen presents more problems than Jared Goff does with his legs, etc. But when you take a much, much better defense and a comparable offense, even though, I hate betting against Russell Wilson. I lost last week betting on Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I mean, in LA, I just don't trust that defense to stop anyone. And I think the Rams defense, much more competent, can pose more problems against Russell Wilson. So right now, I got to take the Rams at home.
Yeah, I see Daniel Pacheco here in the chat box. Seattle team total over. I know the Rams have a tough defense where Russ can cook. They could score at least 27. I would agree with that, but it's interesting because when you take a look at the Rams offense, sometimes not the fastest, again, Seattle has a really bad defense, but in order to hit those chunks, you want the other team to participate and be able to get off the schneid early and go through chunk plays. I can see the Rams in this game, hey, Cooper Kupp over the middle, 12 yards, outside 12 yards, keep it on the ground and run, keep Russ off the field. Those are always tough ones, but I can't disagree with Russell Wilson because it seems like no matter where he is on the field or what's going on, as long as he's healthy, and again, he's not on great, he's on turf, he's going to be extra electric evading the pocket. And DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett on the outside. Keep an eye on who's coming back at running back for them as well. It's an interesting game of fun one to talk about. Only a few minutes left here in the show, so we'll speed burst through these last few games. 271, 272. San Francisco and Nick Mullins off a bye, getting some help back at wide receiver, at least we think, going up against New Orleans. But it's one of those games where the public always has that tough time. They go, wait a second. I just saw New Orleans healthy blow the Tampa Bay Bucs right off the field. I just saw those San Francisco 49ers not even put up a fight until the last minute of the game where all of a sudden they wanted to score 2 touchdowns. They got exploded in that game. What gives in this one? And Kyle Shanahan, as we know, one of the best play callers. I think Nick Mullen will give them an honest effort, but I need to see who's back for San Francisco because if I get Debo back, I get Ayuk back, I get maybe one of the running backs, maybe I can look at a team total here for San Francisco, even though I like New Orleans' defense, but I think New Orleans is going to have the ability to really hang their own number. 50 looks a little bit late to me in this game, but again, I preface this by saying it's nice to talk about on a Tuesday because maybe later in the week we see who's back for the 49ers.
Yeah, exactly. And if you remember this game last year, of course, the 49ers were healthy. Saints were. This was that 46-44. It was a crazy game, something like that. I think it was 46-44, 44-41. Absolutely insane game last year between these two teams. I think there's a score to settle here for New Orleans. The 49ers, obviously the NFC champs last year, that win against New Orleans really helped propel them to the number 1 seed and, spell doom for New Orleans in the wild card round. I got to take New Orleans, and I do think that I agree with the 9.5s, the 9s, 8.5s. I agree with that line. I just don't know what Nick Mullins is going to do against that defense fully healthy. The pass rush is there. The defensive backs were there. I know we saw Marshawn Lattimore, some cramps. The Jenkins boys are playing absolutely fantastic. The only hope for the 49ers this week is if you get a letdown from them. Typically doesn't happen in New Orleans at home. I like the Saints early in the week. I think it's going to be a long second half of the year for my 49ers, unfortunately.
Sunday Night Football next week, 273, 274, Baltimore, New England. You saw New England pull out a victory that they were down, double digits to the New York Jets. Not a great look, but you saw Jacobs go down late in that game. I don't know if it was a shoulder or a concussion, but something to keep an eye on because that takes away a little bit of the explosiveness out of the running game. But I tell you the one thing, if you don't have a great passing game, which New England doesn't have, that's not a really good look against Baltimore and the toughest defenses. Now, Calais Campbell got hurt early in that Indianapolis Colts game. Going to miss a couple weeks with a calf strain, but it just seems like they reload wherever they go. LJ Ford probably back for this game as well. And when you take a look from a firing condition from New England, I don't know if they have the guns to put up 21 points versus Baltimore Ravens defense. And I think on turf, Baltimore, which seems to score over 20 points every single time they roll their helmet out, I think they can get into the 20s. The 7 to 7.5 is a big number. But if you're also looking at, hey, they didn't play all that well versus the Colts last week and ended with a double-digit win, good luck Cam Newton in this one. I can only look at the Baltimore Ravens in this game early.
Yeah, I mean, New England got lucky to squeak by the New York Jets. I mean, they were absolutely torched by Joe Flacco last night. And Brashad Perriman, now I know Lamar has not looked great, but absolutely no chance I'm betting on.
No pass rush either on New England, Kyle. None.
Yeah,
Zero.
None. I mean, what will Lamar Jackson do to that defense? He should be able to run amok on this team. I do think that Baltimore rolls in this one. Don't love that 7.5. I mean, no one does when you're betting that on the road, but no shot I'm betting New England. I'll take Baltimore early in the week, and I'll probably stay there all week. I can't see myself jumping onto the New England bandwagon this week.
Young Bucks at 405. Those Chargers and the Miami Dolphins, 277, 278. Justin Herbert and Tua Tagovailoa, the new king of Miami. They'll head back to South Beach and play. 6 out of 10 tickets early in the week coming in, showing for the Miami Dolphins. Opened up at 2.5. Hasn't moved, staying at 2.5. And over under at 48 across the board. I ate some crow last week saying, hey, I really like that under in the Miami Dolphins Arizona Cardinals game. And they just torched that right out of the box. And a nice game put up for Tua. It'll be interesting because it just seems like every every game Justin Herbert plays in, it doesn't matter the team where it's at. The kid is just throwing dimes, multiple touchdown passes. We'll see if Tua can repeat his effort last week versus Arizona. Not a great defense for the Chargers. I look at the 48, and I do actually, Kyle, I think it's kind of low in this, and it's funny because, again, a couple years ago, 48 was a high total. I think both of these teams can get into the 20s, but are we trusting the Miami Dolphins here in the favorite role here? We like them in the dog role they played the last 2 times with Tua, now expected to win the football game, a little bit different pressure.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'm 0-2 betting against Tua so far, and I don't feel great about that. But you're right. I mean, Justin Herbert, it is not his fault the Chargers aren't winning these games. He's been awesome. I mean, he throws a beautiful ball. That ball should have been caught in the end zone. Would have come from behind victory. That would have been against the Raiders. Herbert did everything right. And you look at 48 now, and you're right. It used to be so high, and now it's like, oh, thank God, a number under 50. So I do like the over in this game. I think both quarterbacks go back and forth. The Dolphins, if you would have told me the Dolphins were going to have a better defense than the Chargers 10 weeks into the season, I'd have told you you're crazy when the year started. We'll see if Bosa's able to come back this week. Obviously missed last week with that concussion. So that could give Tua some fits, but we saw he's more than capable of breaking down the pocket, getting out of the pocket, running the ball. I think there's points here. Chargers just don't know how to win football games, so I got to lean the Dolphins, and I definitely like the over 48. I'm almost tempted to bet every game now that's in the 40s just because it feels like such a gift, you know. It's like if you've been eating, you know, prison food for 2 years and you get out and they offer you the crappiest Taco Bell burrito you can find and it tastes like a gourmet meal. That's what a 40 feels like in the totals this year. Give me the over and give me the Dolphins early in the week.
Yeah, as they say on totals as well, Kyle, or at least I say it, you didn't win the under. You got lucky you hit the under. That's the adage, the adage goes here. 275, right. 276, Minnesota and Chicago, Kirk Cousins and Nick Foles. And I've always been on the Dalvin train. I always look at like Jimbo Fisher in college football with Florida State and wonder what his career would have actually ended up like if he never had Dalvin Cook. Because if anybody watched Dalvin at Florida State, it was, oh my God, it's 3rd and 20. What do we do? Hand it to Dalvin Cook. He's going to get a first down. He looks absolutely like in another world when he plays. Every time he takes a handoff, it looks like he's faster than everybody and more powerful at the same time. It doesn't matter if you throw it to him out of the backfield, run it with him on a sweeper directly up the middle. He is a threat to hit a home run every single time. Now, he's going to go up against a pretty good defense here with the Chicago Bears, the much maligned offense for the Bears, who actually had a decent amount of yards last week, and a Minnesota team that's not great overall on defense. But the fact of the matter is, if I get Minnesota healthy at wide receiver, at quarterback, and also at running back, it just seems to me that they should be able to overpower Chicago. Like, I would be shocked if at this game ended like, hey, Foles won 27-17 over Minnesota. That offense is that good at moving it on the ground. And we're not getting crazy, windy, cold weather conditions, which it looks like 36 degrees, 50. That's a normal Chicago November night. So nothing out of the ordinary that we're going to see. It's hard for me to take Chicago, man. It is. It really is.
It's hard for me, but it's also nearly impossible for me to take Kirk Cousins in primetime. I mean, he is Andy Dalton light in primetime. He's absolute garbage on primetime. But then again, you look at the Bears, not this dominant run defense, averaging just over 4 yards a carry. Offenses are 14th in the league, giving up 116 yards rushing. The formula will be very simple. Get the ball to Dalvin Cook and work off the play action. I'm just saying, I do think the Vikings, are a little bit better of a team. I know the Bears have the record. I'm not a big believer in the Bears, but my God, Kirk Cousins is so terrible on Monday Night Football. I'm going to go back. It's going to be difficult. I will throw up in my mouth betting on Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football, but I do think they have the weapons to overcome the Bears defense. On the other side, Chicago should be able to move the ball, even if David Montgomery doesn't play. That Vikings defense is god-awful. Taking a road Kirk Cousins on Monday night seems disgusting to me, but I guess early on, ever so slightly, I'll take Dalvin Cook, not Kirk Cousins, and the Vikings early on in the week, but my mind can definitely change this week.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? Because you take a look at this game, and the Bears defense hasn't really been lit. I mean, they played New Orleans, gave up 122 on the ground, 272 in the air, but they haven't really been, exposed in one of those games where you just go up and down the field. Now, it's crazy to think, because you take a look at David Montgomery there with the concussion if he goes or doesn't. If he doesn't go, I actually like the total even more because that'll force them to say, you know what, we don't even have that power back. Let's just see if we can air it out and try to get after that secondary. So something to keep in mind. But that is the card for Tuesday. Nice, crisp, clean show here. Had Larry from WagerWeb on, had a good time with him over the first 15 minutes, plowed through this card. And as we like to say, we will sharpen our pencils and get ready for Thursday's show, and also a decent football game that we'll really get after between the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. So thank you guys for showing up here on a Tuesday. Over 225 people currently watching the show now. Thank you. Retweet the show. Hit the thumbs up if you like it. We love to come on and talk football because you guys come in that chat box and bring it each and every time. We don't ask for anything in return except you see 73,400 people have subscribed to our network right here on YouTube. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button. Turn the notification bell on. Every time Kyle and myself go live talking NFL football, you will get it delivered directly to your inbox, and we will talk some football and have some fun. We'll be back on a Thursday. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. We are SportsBookReview.com, and this was your opening line show for Week 10 NFL.